Due to poor video angles, I'm going to do a little time travel here and go back and show the cutting of the top template. It's basically the same as cutting the side forms, which you'll get to see a little bit of. But I'm going to say this much. This is where CNCs really shine. I can draw out all these nice lines and everything in my software and create a template that is a million times better than what I could do by hand. I just don't have that kind of patience, to be honest. Look, I get it. You're looking at a CNC cutting out bending forms and whatnot and thinking, that's expensive, and I don't have access or the space for a CNC. You don't really need it. This is the first one I've ever built using a CNC. I'm kind of pushing myself to the max here. Really, if you want to go all the way to the bottom of it, you just need a good set of drawings and a few tools, like a jigsaw, a hot iron, and some other stuff. Really, what I'm doing is kind of the ultimate evolution of guitar building, not where you start at. Alright, while the CNC does some work for me in the background, let's get started on milling some sides out of this nice chunk of hard maple. I do believe you might call this quilted, you might call it flame. I just like how it looks. We're going to go with that. I cut it to about 36 inches long here. Swing over to the table saw. I'm going to true off one edge using this little jig I have set up. This basically gives me a moving fence. And finally cut to about 4.5 inches wide. Just gotta drop some marks on here so when I resaw this I can keep an eye on which order they came out of the blank. And set my thickness. About 4 millimeters raw. Gives me plenty to take out saw marks and whatnot. Had to go readjust the CNC, set up a few things. Plus the stop here was hiding somewhere in the shop, so it took me a while to find it. And here we are at actual speed for resawing. This is kind of slow. Hold on a second. Let's kick this up a notch, why don't we? I'll thickness these to 2 millimeters on the drum sander, but I'm going to skip over that. It's not anything interesting to watch. Alright, that's most of the power tool stuff out of the way for a while. Now it's just a matter of figuring out which of these sides I want to use and in which order and placement, which is what I'm working on right now. Do some layout lines, markings to know where the lower bouts are and whatnot. I have a terrible habit of managing to bend sides backwards or in the wrong place, so we're going to take every extra precaution here. Give it a little rough cut to take off some of the excess length. In the past, I used aluminum foil as opposed to butcher paper, but I found it retained too much moisture after bending. I find the paper actually helps drive it off better when you're done. I really should use some between the metal slats, though, because I've had some problems with staining. And of course, I lost the camera footage of the bending process, so you'll have to do with the fact that you get to see it come out of the form, unfortunately. Oops. So you'll notice there are little slots that extend past the corners on hard corners. This allows me to extend the wood pieces past and helps to keep it from having to be a precise cut. Plus it holds the piece in on the corners. Saves on clamps. Now, some of you may be wondering why the form itself isn't deeper. It's actually pretty simple because I need to have access to both the top and the bottom edges to apply things like kerfing. So the form is really just there to keep its shape. It's not an entire mold, if you will. Turns out it's really difficult to find a way to make a template for the sides that you can actually trace the radius in to save on sanding and whatnot. So instead, I created a small CNC program and this little setup that allows me to trace the pencil line onto it. Now I can rough cut a lot closer. And now to cut those sides. I'm going to use this chunk of cherry so that I can have support on the inside of the curves as well as the outside. Trust me, it's no fun trying to cut an acoustic side without any support. It bounces and springs all over the place. So it's time to let the CNC loose on the neck block. This way I should have the geometry all nice and tight for the actual neck. Something that's been a bit of a struggle in the past. And this is where the CNC really shines, cutting things that need to match curves. So now I don't have to sit there and sand and fit that so much. Cherry is so much more satisfying to work than hard maple. Trust me, I spent a lot of time in hard maple. And yes, for those of you who see the massive finger bandage, it is as much of a pain as it looks. So probably the most difficult glue up on the entire rim of the guitar is the cutaway section to the neck block. It tends to be really hard to hold in place for whatever reason, and one of the highest springback pieces in the whole lot. I'll lightly clamp the front face in place. I don't want to clamp this down too tight because it's going to have to slide. And then we'll try and pull in the sides. After that, we'll start tensioning everything up around it. And the next day or so, obviously I let that one dry for a while because there was a bit of tension in that whole thing. I mean, that really is an interesting guitar shape that is developed there. Unfortunately, it's not the one I was after, so let's fix that, why don't we? Yeah, I gotta trim off this little ledge here before I can proceed with gluing, because otherwise it's going to hit the side here and get in the way. And now, applying the sticky stuff. See, wasn't that a whole lot faster to glue the front on than the side? I mean, I'm already onto the tail block here. And now for the last piece to get the rim completely joined together. We gotta cut a little piece to go inside the cutaway. Nice little triangular piece of spruce. Just gonna rough it out with a chisel here. You can see it's got a little bit of a cross grain thing sort of going on, so it doesn't want to peel quite so nicely. Just gonna clamp the block plane in my vise and do a little bit of shaving work here. It's a whole lot easier than trying to do it the other way around. Although we're going to add this push stick. One mishap a month is enough. And now to glue in that little block. You'll probably notice that that side for the cutaway doesn't quite come in all the way. That's okay, because when I cut the soft square to put on the ebony trims, it won't be an issue any longer. So I make my own kerfed linings as opposed to buying them. Unfortunately, they tend to crack in odd places. Thankfully, it's really not a big deal because they do the job all the same. Some people use a bunch of old clothespins for this job. I used to. These are so much nicer, and realistically, it didn't cost me all that much to get a box of 100. I might tweak the jaws just a little bit, though, in the future. So I need to put down some marks so that when I go to glue the top to the rim, I don't end up in the wrong place. Pencil sands away way too fast, so I prefer a Sharpie mark.
How did you get those?
And just a touch of wax on the inside of the neck block joints to keep the glue from sticking. One of these days I'll remember to build alignment pins into the design. Because of the curvature of the front here, I had to put these runners to raise my router up so it could be flat to the neck block. You can't really see it, but I had to remove the screw from the front of the pilot bearing because otherwise I wouldn't be able to fit this. Trust me, this is scary the first time you do it, but you can use the CNC to carve the preliminary radius, as opposed to having to sand it. Just making a temporary little fence so I can cut the little support blocks for the rim. Watching this back, maybe I should make myself a little fence like you would use to make Kumiko panels for this. I'll have to try that. So I need to mark out the positions of the back braces on the rim so I can, what they call, let in the braces, or basically cut them into the sides just a little bit. So this kind of stuff happens. I gotta try and steam out a little dent here, and we're gonna use a soldering iron for that. I'll be able to improve this one, but not fully correct it. Some of the fibers were ripped. I like to think that sealing the inside with a light barrier coat of shellac helps slow down moisture transfer and may reduce the risk of cracking due to humidity changes in the future. Plus, it just looks nice. So I'm using a thin foam puzzle mat and both of my radius dishes to create basically a massive clamping caul. So I think this is a good break point. So I'm going to end the episode here, and I'll see you in the next one.